Bonjour everyone, I am Anis Kayes and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. My name is Anis Kayes and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we're Brandora and we specialize in helping real estate companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. So we have a very guest today. I am with Lynn Sog here from Canada. Lynn is a tech founder, community builder, financial advisor, and an author. She's a badass, and I can't wait to tell you guys about her story. Lynn, it's so nice to meet you and to have here on the show. I love what you're doing. You know, I'm a fan. Could you share with our listeners a little bit about your background, your story, and how you came about to start your most recent venture, Knit.ai?
Of course. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm a big fan and keep up the great work. To give you a little bit of my background, I've been a financial advisor for 20 years. I have my own firm and I mainly work with small business owners and I also run a community here in Canada, in Montreal, called Women and Money Montreal, where I teach financial literacy online. So a couple of years ago, talking to people in my community, I realized that it's getting harder and harder to purchase a home or invest in real estate. Things that we've been told that we need to do. That's the American and Canadian dream. You finish school, you start your career, you buy the house. Well, it's getting harder. And the idea of Oni AI stemmed from my community and the very clients that I serve. And it's, we call it the Tinder of home buying or real estate. And what we do is we help match people who are looking for a partner to invest in real estate or buy a home with.
I love it. So could you share with our listeners a bit more about Own It and how it works and who it's for? By the way, I love how you call it, the Tinder of home buying. I love it.
Thank you. It was actually Mike Fata, who's he's a incredible entrepreneur here in Canada in the CPG space. So shout out to him. He's the one who came up with that tagline. Basically, it is like a Tinder, except instead of looking for a romantic partner, you're looking for a partner to invest in real estate with. And what we're doing is we're making home buying and real estate investing affordable, something that hasn't been addressed by any government program, lender program, is the demographic that's changing. And there's a lot of people now who are single, either by choice or due to circumstances. We live in a global world where people are moving all across the world and they don't necessarily have a sister, a brother, an uncle, a parent who could co-sign with them. So on the app, you create your profile and you basically scroll through to see if you find a partner who matches with your goals, your investment goals and your needs. And afterwards, we walk you through the journey by setting you up with a mortgage broker, a realtor, depending on where you live. Here in Quebec, a notary is the legal expert who closes the transaction. Depending on where you live, it might be a real estate lawyer, but we make sure that our users are fully protected legally and understand the process of getting into real estate with somebody else.
Wow, I love it. And could you share with us how, because you were building a community before, you come from a financial background, how did you decide to make the move to starting this new venture?
Well, I didn't jump in right away. The minute that I decided that I was going to move forward with the tech app, I said to myself, well, that's great, but I have a problem. I run a business full time. And, as much as on social media, they say hustle hard and work the 80 hours a week, it was not something I really wanted to do. What I did with my financial services business is I took about a year and a half to scale. I was focused on extreme growth. I grew my team. So it took about a year and a half. And right now I still have my business, but I don't really take on any new clients. My team takes care of new clients, leads. I still service the clients that I have, but in general, I might take on 10% of the new leads we get if it's somebody that I know or someone who only wants to work with me. But in general, I don't take on any new clients. And it's really important because otherwise I'd burn out. And over the years, we've kind of glamorized burning out in the entrepreneurship space. And it's something I did not want to do. So it was about a year to 18 months of planning to grow, scale, so that I could focus on my tech company.
Yeah, I hear you about burning out. It almost became like a rite of passage, something that I
Yes.
find very toxic. So tell us how you scaled, because you speak very nonchalantly about it. Like, I just scaled within a year or two. I scaled my business and voila. Could you share with us how you made that happen?
You know what I did? We have access to the internet and so much information online. It's something I try to share with my small business owner clients. When I first started in financial services, we didn't have the internet, or it was dial up internet. I think it was back then. For me to get clients Monday to Thursday from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., I had to pick up the white pages and start calling people, cold calling people and asking them, hey, I know you don't know me, but would you be open to meeting with me as an investment advisor? It wasn't, it's how it was to do business back then. Nowadays, I don't want to say it's easy because it's not, but it's much easier than other ways of having a career and generating money. I really leveraged social media. And how I did it was I looked at other profiles of people that I follow who are in similar businesses, financial, real estate. It's very similar when it comes to lead generation. And I followed their tips and tricks for people who wanted to scale their business. We're all online. We consume so much information online. It's not about, taking photos and posting it in your stories of where you just ate. That doesn't generate any money for me. What generates leads are intentional videos, short videos of questions that I get asked on a regular basis with a call to action, misconceptions, just anything that's a little bit outside of the box. And that's it. I didn't spend any money on digital advertising. I already had quite a foundation on social media. But for me, if that's all I need to do in order to get leads and generate leads, and it's free, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did.
So you were really intentional with your effort with social media and saw it as a lead generation tool, not just a branding exercise, but as a real lead generation tool. And you inspired yourself from content that you saw. And do you have on top of your mind other influencers or content creators that you were looking up to and where you thought that's really inspiring, I want to do something similar? Or did you feel there's not anyone that I don't really see myself doing the same thing? What was the process in finding your own voice and creating content that resonated real for you and felt authentic?
That's an easy question to answer for me. I followed Tatiana Londono. So Tatiana Londono is a realtor here in Montreal. She's also licensed in Florida. She's very active online. She has over 1 million followers on TikTok. And she says it best. So her personality, not everybody's into her personality, but take it with a grain of salt and really listen to the advice and the free tips that she gives in her videos, which is, in her case, real estate is easy. It's so much easier to do real estate than heart surgery. And she makes it a point to say, becoming a surgeon, that's hard. Selling real estate through social media and creating videos and creating good content, that's not hard. That's not hard at all. It's still work, but it's not the same level of difficulties. Anybody could do it. Like I said, when I started out, I used to cold call people during supper time to ask them if they wanted to meet and discuss their investments. That's hard. Making videos, 30 to 60-second videos related to what you do for a living and very precise and intentional, that's easy. And I wish that more small business owners would stop being so shy and saying, oh, I don't look good on camera. I'm so shy. This is it. You're leaving money on the table. If you don't do it, somebody else who does exactly what you do is going to do it, and they're going to take your customers away.
And the first time you were going on camera, do you remember it being hard, or are you okay?
I'm laughing. That's why, because I remember my first time on camera.
Yeah. So how was it? Like, tell us a little bit about that, because you make it seem like you just go on camera and voila. I find it hard to go on camera, and I want to walk the walk. I want to help my clients do it too, but I understand the fear and I do find it intimidating myself. So how did you feel in the beginning? And do you feel that it's a matter of reps, doing it regularly, consistently? until you get comfortable doing it.
Yes, you have to. It's like anything else. It's like riding a bike. It's like public speaking. You could read about it. You could learn about it online, but you have to do it. So the more times you do it, the more comfortable you'll be, and the less anxiety you'll feel by picking up a camera and just talking. So now I could just pick up the phone right now and start filming without a script. My hair could be out of place. I don't care anymore. I remember I shot a series of videos, and I had like a little scab on my forehead. So I have a bad habit of picking my scab. So I picked my scab and it started to bleed. But I got dressed up. I had the makeup and I was ready to shoot. And I said, screw it. I'm going to shoot a bunch of videos. And I did, with that red dot on my forehead. So if you go back about a year, you'll see a series of videos and I have a red dot on my forehead. Anyways, my first video was, I believe it was 2 years ago. And like I said, I run a community called Women in Money Montreal. In January of that year, I held an in-person event. Everybody wrote a Dear Future Me letter on paper, sealed in envelopes. And I said that I would mail these. This was in January. I said I would mail these letters out Canada Day, July 1st. I was in the car with my husband. I had the envelopes and I was just going to pop them in the mailbox. And my husband turned to me and said, well, why don't you make a video about it? And I said, but I look awful. I look like crap. I had, a mom shirt and jean shorts on. My hair was doing funny things. And he said, just do it. Who cares? And he said, I've seen other people make videos who look half as good as you, and they just put it out there. So why not? And we were driving home, and we lived not far from an industrial area where there are warehouses, and we saw a mailbox, because that's the other thing. Where are we going to find a mailbox? You don't see them as much anymore. And there was a mailbox on the corner. It was really, really loud because there was a factory behind us, so you could hear all the sounds from the trucks. We said, let's go and do it. So it's my husband who filmed the video for me on my camera, which had a broken camera, by the way. So if you go back on my Instagram and see my first video, it was blurry because the camera was broken. And I still remember what I said. I had the envelopes in my hand, no script. And I basically said, hi, I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. Back in January, I explained the story. I'm going to mail these out. Please do me a favor when you receive these letters. Film, open them, and tag me on Instagram. That was my first video. It wasn't scripted. I looked like crap, but it worked. And after that, I said, oh, this isn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first video. That's why I laughed, because it was funny, spur of the moment, but I'm happy I did it.
It sounds like you're really brave. You know what needs to get done. And yes, you might get scared to do it or a bit uncomfortable, but you have the vision. So you understand that this is maybe the zone of discomfort that you're willing to go through to reach your goals. If that means being uncomfortable and looking a little bit like on camera, so be it. I love that. But it is, I hear from a lot of clients that fear of going on camera. And I always say like exactly like you're saying, it's the first times that are difficult, like anything new. Nobody is born with a social media following. Nobody is born like magnificent on camera. You got to put in the reps and it will become normal. There's no way around it. But I love hearing how you just decided to go for it. And now it became normal and it really worked out for you. You really were using that tool for lead generation for that business. And I want to touch on the book that you wrote, The Audacity to Own It. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about the book, what it's about, why you decided to write it?
So it was a little bit over a year ago, and I was preparing to write and apply for a TED Talk. So the coach that I was working with, she, I could talk about anything, but there's a format to TED Talk. So she asked me, well, what would you like to talk about? And I said, I have no idea. I could talk about literally anything. She asked me, what's the one thing that everybody asks you? And for me, it was very simple. It's how do you do it? How do you do it all? Backstory, I was a young mom. I had my first child when I was 19. We ended up getting married. We had 4 children together. Just before my 30th birthday, we split up. Filed for divorce. I was 32 years old. Single mom of 4. I think my oldest at the time was 11. I've since remarried. But, I have my business. I'm always in a good mood. I'm always doing things. So how do you do it? That's a question I get asked at least a dozen times a week. So the TED Talk that I wrote was how I do it. When my coach asked me, well, when someone asks you that, how do you explain it to them? And I said, well, I just tell them I do it. I do it. If I don't like something, I won't do it. If I want to do something, I do it. And she really got me to dig deep under the surface. And she said, if you were to write a manual on how you do it to somebody else, if you were to teach someone else how you do it, what would you say? That was hard for me to do because I've never had to dig deep inside of me to write it out. So that was about a year ago. And then I got busy with life and decided I wasn't going to do the TED Talk or apply for it. I met her for lunch in September again, and she asked me how everything was going. I told her I was going to put the TED Talk on hold. This is when the app Oni AI was starting to take off. And she said, well, what you have to do now is write a book. And I said, well, what do you mean write a book? And she said, why don't you take the TED Talk and expand it into book form? So the book, The Audacity to Own It, is the script, is the manual on how I do it and how I'm able to just do the things that I do in life. It looks easy, but there's a mindset to it. And it's having the audacity to own your life. It's having the audacity to say no and to set boundaries. It's having the audacity to look at the big picture. A lot of times we make decisions in the split moments because we're scared of the initial reaction, but we always have to think of the big picture for anything. Whether it's staying at a job that you don't like, staying in a business that's not working out for you, staying in a relationship that that's toxic. How do you step out of it? And for me, the answers are usually easy because I know how to set those boundaries. So really the book is how my mind works and the mindset on setting boundaries so that you own your life.
So if you had to summarize it in three takeaways, the audacity to own it, what would the three be?
The three
takeaways from the book, how you do it. The questions you're being asked 12 times per week, basically.
Yeah. How do I do it? It's learning how to unapologetically say no. That's number one. The second thing is look at the big picture. Look at the big picture. Feelings come and go. Whatever you feel in the moment, there's a long-term effect. And the third thing is it's usually never as bad as we think. So whatever it is, it's, when we think it's the end of the world, it's usually never as bad as we think. We live in a world where, luckily, where we live, Canada, the US, we have options. We have opportunities. There are people who could help. Even during the darkest times, there's so many communities that are available. There's so much support that's available. We're really, really blessed over here, especially as women in other parts of the world. We don't have as many in other parts of the world. There aren't as many options. So, just believe that you could do it, and you can. Anything is possible. Anything is doable as long as you believe that you could do it.
I love that. That's music to my ears. And going back to the community that you built, Women and Money, you had your own business. Why did you decide to build a community like that? Because you didn't have to. Where did it come from and what did you have in mind?
It started at the beginning of COVID. I was already offering webinars online to clients. It wasn't structured. I was offering them to clients through some of the organizations that we have here. And at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were interested in financial literacy because we really didn't have anything else to do. Everything was closed. People weren't working. And it was something that I saw online. And it was actually one of my clients who suggested that I start this community because I was offering webinars for free, but there was no place for us to gather. And during the pandemic, that's all we wanted. We wanted a sense of community. So that's why I started Women in Money Montreal. It began in 2020, in December 2020. What's funny is that at the time when my client, now friend, suggested it to me, I didn't know what a community was. I've never really been part of any communities. It was kind of a new concept. I worked, had my family, but I never really belonged anywhere. So she kind of walked me through of the importance of a community and why people join. And I just took that and ran with it. So when I look at Women in Money Montreal now, we're over 2,000 members. We've grown organically. I teach financial literacy weekly on Zoom, and throughout the year we'll host 4, 5, 6 events in person a year. It's women of all different ages, all different nationalities, all different backgrounds, stages of life. I can't pigeonhole exactly the demographic. It's just women who work hard, want to do the right thing with their money, and just want to live a good life, no matter how much money you make. no matter how
Hmm.
little or how much money you make, no matter what you do for a living, no matter how old you are, we all just want to do the same thing at the end of the day. So that's the goal, that's the objective of the community, and it just keeps growing, and I love it. I thank them for everything, not just from a business perspective, but when I was going through some hard times during COVID, it was almost therapeutic for me to know that
Hmm.
I was helping. So many friendships and business relationships have grown from the community.
Hmm.
They really make it what it is.
Do you feel that the community is one of the reasons why you started Own It?
Yes, 100%. The idea came from them. So if I do look at the community, I would say about 60% of the women, 60-70%. So a lot of them are single women who work hard. Either they've never been married, no kids, or they divorced, or whatever the story is. And so many times individually, they've asked me, Lynn, I want to buy a house, but I can't afford it on my own. I don't have a partner. How do you find a real estate partner? And they would start going to real estate events, and sometimes they're intimidating. These are women who just work and like to live a quiet life, and they found them intimidating. So the whole concept of ONI came from the very community that I serve. All the testing, all the beta testing, all the feedback, how it's being set up is from the community, and I thank them for that.
I love it. And as you're building Own It, it's something that's being asked a lot of women who are not tech. Did you feel that you needed to find a co-founder, or how did you go about starting a tech business, not being a tech founder?
Trial and error. Trial and error, because I didn't know how to even begin an app. So I actually asked one of my clients, because she's a data scientist. So I had lunch with her and asked her how I start. She wasn't in a position to help because she works full time, and she said she couldn't do it. She referred me to my UX, the woman who's now my UX lead on the team. She has helped me a lot understand the tech industry. I just threw myself in. In the beginning, I joined every webinar, every in-person event, really threw myself into the ecosystem. So because I have a business background, I was able to kind of take everything with a grain of salt, because like everything else with tech, certain things just aren't relevant or aren't even. So that's how I learned. And I'm still learning. I'm fortunate to have people around me who've been through the process. I'm around exited founders who are willing to give back and share their information, and give their feedback and tips. I'm not someone who's shy to ask for help or to ask for advice. I also know who to ask, because not everybody out there is going to give good advice. So that's how I did it. It's learning in progress, but always remembering that even though I don't have a tech background, I have a very strong business background.
Hmm.
So always keeping that in mind, those days when I don't understand what anybody's talking about at a conference, just keeping in mind that I'm building a business that happens to be in tech, and
Hmm.
access to so much information. I'm around so many people who live, breathe it, have exited. So, leaning on them for advice and tips when needed.
So, for those of you listening, this is really important. I think a great piece of wisdom. You don't necessarily need a tech founder to start a tech companies. That's a narrative that's being fed particularly to women.
Yes.
So, if you women entrepreneurs are thinking about starting a business and you're not a tech co-founder, you can find help. You can find the right allies. You can hire. It does not mean that you need to have a co-founder to start building your dream or your empire. I love hearing that. And so, Lynn, where do you see the business in a year from now? And also, if you had access to a magic wand to help you grow the business, what would it be?
In a year, I want us to be across Canada. I want it to be part of our DNA. If the numbers are there. I mean, there are people who want to buy, who want to purchase, who want to invest in real estate, but they don't have a partner. We have all the statistics there. So a year from now, I would love to be across Canada. We're building ONI through community. So in the same way that I built my financial services business, we're also building ONI communities in every major city across Canada, because one of the barriers of a platform like this is trust. How do you trust the person that you're going to go into business with? So there's a lot of education that's going to be done through that. And it's going to be done through community, through word of mouth, through education. So in a
Mhm.
year, that's what I would love to do. We need to close 1,000 transactions to generate our first $1 million of revenue. So that's our first target. And we hope to do that by the end of next year.
That's awesome. And Lynn, this is my last question. if you were to give a piece of advice of the 20-year-old Lynn, what would it be?
You're better than you think. You're better than you think. I remember when I was 20 years old, I was barefoot and with my little 1-year-old. He was a year old. I didn't finish school. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a young mom. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I couldn't even think about the end of the month, let alone 5 years from now. So if I could talk to my 20-year-old self, you have so much potential that you don't even see. The world really is all of our oysters. But the problem is all we think about is whatever's in arm's reach. But the world is so much bigger than what is within the arm's reach. And we need to believe in ourselves. So I have a saying: if we had 10% of the audacity that some of these leaders have, and I'm not going to name any names, but if some of these leaders, if some of these billionaires have, imagine how different the world would be. So we need to just 10% of that. Our lives, the world, governance would be completely different.
That's beautiful. And I agree. I think we tend to see what's within arm's reach and again, like pulling back and seeing like everything is bigger than we think. I love this. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show, Lynn, today. It was so insightful and so full of wisdom. I love your approach and what you're building with Own It and how you're growing a community and seeing how you believe in yourself so much is really inspiring. Sounds like you're always your own cheerleader and you take action no matter what. And that's really inspiring to see that. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. And we can all do it. We all have to find that within ourselves.
Thank you so much. Lynn, last question. Where can people find you?
Everywhere. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as Instagram and Threads. So please feel free to connect. I'm easily accessible.
Lovely. And that wraps up today's episode on Parlez-Vous CEO and our special real estate series with female leaders. I am Annelise Caillez and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Annelise Caillez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.